How about we animate that?
Hi, and welcome to How About We Animate That, the series where we, and by we I mean me, David Pagano, animate that. And by that, I mean this. This is a figure of Jareth the Goblin King, as portrayed by the late, great David Bowie, from Jim Henson's Labyrinth. I did not grow up with this movie. However, I've been a huge Jim Henson and David Bowie fan my entire life, so as an adult I have now come around to this. And this is a pretty cool figure. It's got the costume from the masquerade scene of the film, and the likeness is spot on. It comes with a crystal ball and a masquerade mask accessory. But sometimes with very high detail figures like this, what it gains in detail, it sort of then lacks in articulation. So I'm curious to see whether this figure will be as posable as it is accurate to the countenance of Mr. David Bowie. And with all of that said, how about we animate that? Okay, so the first thing I'm checking out about this figure is the articulation, because I want to get an idea of how best to animate it, or how it can even be animated. The McFarlane Toys website says 12 plus points of articulation, and let's see if that's about right. So we've got one in the head, which is kind of a ball joint. The hair kind of gets in the way a little bit. We've got the shoulders, which are kind of ratchet joints, almost like those click joints from Lego. They're not ideal for animation, but I think we can make do. The elbows also kind of click in the same kind of way, but you can rotate them side to side pretty smoothly. The hands rotate around one axis, and then the legs don't do much of anything. You can't bend them out at even a 45-degree angle, let alone a 90-degree angle. And you can bend the knees, so I guess he could do like that kind of a pose for whatever that's worth, but we will not be doing any walk cycles of this character, I can tell you that right now. And then the ankles are also rotatable, and a little bit you can kind of bend them back and forth, but all in all, I wouldn't say this character is ideal for animation, but we're going to do the best we can with what we've got. The figure did come with a base that has some pegs that go straight into the feet, so I'm using that as a way to tie the character down to the tabletop, just clamping the heck out of everything. I've got this white backdrop that's also just kind of sitting here because it doesn't need to be anything fancy. And then I'm just trying to frame things out in Dragon Frame in a way that looks kind of nice and cinematic. I've also got my copy of the Labyrinth Blu-ray here to use as a reference point. Because he is against a white background, I'm trying to make the lighting and the cinematography of this a little bit ethereal to give the impression of him being like a magical character. So I've got some like lens flare up here, just a little bit, and he's very backlit right now. I ended up getting rid of the larger backdrop just so that I could get a light shining directly on his head, so you get this nice casting light on the hair up there. That is some crazy 80s hair. So I read about this trick somewhere where if you put like a black stocking over the lens, it can help to make the image a little blurrier and more kind of like dreamlike. And I guess this does do that. I don't know how I feel about it though. This is without stocking, this is with stocking. Not sure if it's the fact that the stockings I bought were 69 cents or not, but I don't know. Maybe the lighting is enough. So I played with this some more and made the stocking a little tighter with this different rubber band. Mostly I was just trying to find like a good halfway point between no stocking, which is this, and the first attempt that I had, which is this. And I feel like this is like not a bad middle ground between those two options. He does look a little bit dreamlike and music video-y. Now that I've got the lighting looking pretty good, I'm going to start with the first test attempt of this. When I saw that the accessories included the crystal ball, I knew I wanted to try to get some of that Michael motion hand movement across, where he kind of moves the crystal ball back and forth. I'm curious to see whether this figure can actually accomplish that. So the first thing I'm going to try instead is to just have him produce the ball out of thin air like he does in the beginning of the film. So I've shot about 10 frames so far. I'm shooting at 12 frames per second as always because I need to finish this animation in the next 13 hours. But one thing I'm running into right now is that I really want his arm to kind of lead the motion of his hand coming on screen. And what I mean by that is his hand is only articulated to rotate this way, but I really want it to kind of come up that way and lead the motion, like whoop, like that kind of a deal. But because his hand can only rotate this way, what I'm doing is trying to compensate for that by using the elbow and having the angle and position of the hand be dictated by the arm that it's attached to. So the arm has come up, and as it settles down into position, I'm having the hand kind of twist around, hopefully not in a way that makes it look like it's breaking. For this kind of animation, I didn't want to break the rig. I wanted to just try what was possible with this figure as is, and in terms of the hand, it's proving a little difficult, but I'm making it work, I think. I'm also having some issues with this lapel being in the way of where I want the arm to go. I've had stuff like that happen on a lot of Lego projects. Anytime there's characters that have like space uniforms, or Buzz Lightyear, I remember, was a big problem because of the way his armor sits on him. You can't lift his arms a certain way, or sometimes there's hair in the way of where you need characters to go, so I just try to make it work. Now in the film, the crystal ball appearing is an optical effect, but I didn't want to do any post-production, as is often the case with How About We Animate That. So I have used a Lego Power Functions light attached to a battery box, and I ran it around the back of the figure and blue tacked it to the hand. And what that looks like in the final is it's lined up in a way where the light is just directly behind the crystal ball as it appears. So it's like appearing in a brilliant flash of light. And then for a couple of frames, I'm changing the light brightness so that it gets brighter, and then kind of as the light fades out, it becomes a solid corporeal object. Moving on to the second shot, I am going to attempt to do that kind of hand motion, the Michael motion ball trick from the film, cropped in the image a bit closer by changing from a 50mm lens to a 60mm lens. And I'm also just now putting the stocking back on and noticing that you can actually see a little bit of the texture with this lens. You can see it change here when I change the depth of field, which is, I don't know what it means, but it is interesting. And part of the reason I've cropped in closer is because I know that these arms are not the most flexible, let's say, and I want to make sure that if I need to, I can hide some of the action off screen. So all you really see is this, and if I need to fudge some of the poses of the hand underneath the frame of this shot, I can. So I think this is going okay. I noticed a little bit, a few frames in, that his hair started to move, so I'm just kind of trying to roll with that now and make it seem very intentional, just like everything I do in stop motion. Coming back around to the other side where the arm needs to move this way on the movement, and sometimes what you need to do is just like bend a figure as far as it'll go and then let it fall back into place, and sometimes that's a good way to get like as much movement, as much posing as you possibly can with limited articulation. And hopefully if I get this to work the way I want it, it'll be a loop at the end so that I can just let this continuously play and he'll just keep doing this over and over again. And of course I've got the ball stuck with blue tack because there's no other way to do it. And then sometimes to get a certain pose, you have to do weird things like this. Basically rubber banded around his entire body and stuck a Lego brick in the back just to get his arm far enough over to the pose that I needed it to be for this next move. So for the last shot, now that I've done all the crystal ball action, I thought I would just do something simple, like maybe him taking this masquerade mask off. Unfortunately, this does not reach his face, and I can't figure out how to get it to like line up. Like we can fake it, but it does not, again, because his articulation is so, let me wear it on his head, because his articulation is so limited, he can't actually do the thing that one would imagine this is made for. I'm trying to line it up. I will say, in their defense, on the box it does not show this position, it only shows this, so they could have very well been aware of this at McFarlane Toys, but I guess we'll never know. But rather than letting that limitation get in the way, I've just done what any reasonable stop-motion animator would do, and stuck the mask on this rig that is holding it right up to his face. And I'm just gonna have this arm pretend to be this arm, but off screen. This is why it was good that I'm doing these all as close-up shots. Alright, well, this disappointing 2 seconds of footage is done. The thing that I thought would be the easiest, but actually turned out to be the most complicated. Let's go look at all these shots. Animation is complete, and this was an interesting exercise, to say the least. Let's take a look at the first of 3 shots that I did. Everything I've done for you. I animate for no one, except in this case. So this was a very straightforward shot. Typically when I'm animating a new product or character like this for the first time, I pick something very simple to start with. And that lets me get used to the character, kind of gets me warmed up for the rest of the animation. And it also helps me find kind of the problem spots in terms of the rig. What parts of the figure are articulated best, which ones are kind of limited and need some extra attention. So this was a perfect simple shot to start with. There's only one main movement. So in addition to being a good warm-up, shot number 1 also served the purpose of being a kind of proof of concept for shot number 2. Could I even attempt to do a juggling motion like this with the crystal ball in this figure? So even though I was unsure about whether I could even do this shot at all, I think it came out pretty well. The loop is a little bit jerky, but I think it works. The part of this shot that seems the smoothest to me is obviously where the arm is furthest away from the body, because when it's out here to the side, there isn't anything getting in the way like when it comes back. That's when I have to deal with the lapel and kind of the weird shirt ruffles, like that kind of gets in the way of having the super smooth motion that I would like. It doesn't really look like he's looking at the ball, but that was by design. I wanted to get across that idea of impressing you with the fact that he doesn't even have to look at what he's doing. He's just gonna keep doing this just like I am right now. So that was supposed to be the difficult shot, and it was difficult to do, but then there's shot number 3. What can I even say about this shot? It's Jareth taking a mask off, just like he does in the movie. Exciting. You know, part of the reason I started this animation by checking all the articulation of this figure was to determine, is there anything that the figure can't do? What are the strengths and weaknesses? What are the problematic areas? I did not, however, remember that that should also include the accessories, because this stupid mask does not actually reach his face because this joint just stops here. So you all saw the workaround that I came up with. It works, but by this point in the animation process, I was emotionally over it. I was done with the Goblin King. I was just like, okay, this was supposed to be the easy part. It is now becoming way more trouble than it's worth. There's always some kind of something you're gonna find in the animation process that's gonna trip you up, and you just have to either kind of roll with it or move on. So that's the McFarlane Toys Jareth the Goblin King figure. And a special thanks to Courtney at McFarlane Toys for sending this to us. If you'd like to try animating this figure yourself, you can head over to the McFarlane Toys website, where they have a list of all the available retailers. And while you're surfing the internet, which is, I believe, what the kids say, don't forget to check out our Patreon page over at patreon.com/Paganomation. That's where you can support us if you like shows like this and content that we produce here. We really appreciate the support of all of our viewers and fans, and it helps keep things going here and keeps the very bright lights that I'm staring into turned on for as long as possible. Our Patreon page is also a great place to make a suggestion for things you'd like to see us animate in the future. Anyway, thanks again to all our viewers and supporters, and we'll see you next time for another How about we animate that?
No one can blame you for walking away.